drifts away, days burn, disintegrate, years roll along and fade, don't let them slip away. Right here, right now, today, these are the good old days. Right here, right now, today, hey, these are the good old days.
Hey, here we go. This is all the action force I need right here.
Full force.
Triple force.
Triple force.
Triple force.
Quadruple.
So I want to say this. Last year at Joe Fest, Zazel and I really tore it up, had a great time, and we wish Spacey was there. But this year, Zazel couldn't come for a number of reasons, and that's fine, no judgment. But when I go down without you, man, I will make another best friend, another bestie.
Oh, that's fine. I can live with that.
But it's we arrived in Georgia on the Thursday. It's a Thursday night, went to this pool party at the hotel, and already there was a buzz. First thing people came up to me, they started like, "There's these guys here, and they're from Ireland, and they've got all kinds of action force, all kinds of it." And then a guy comes to me, he's like, the next guy I talked to was like, "Look what I got," and he held up an SAS Panther, and he's like, I bought this off of a guy in an elevator. He bought it from some Irish guys that have action force." And so there's this rumbling of, and so Thursday, they're like, "You got to get on the show floor like a day early and go to the action force. You got to find these guys." And so by the time I got to the action force table, all of the SAS Panthers were gone, but apparently they were gone before the show even opened up. People were buying them and reselling them, doing all kinds in elevators. It was nuts. But the action force table, my man Stephen Kelly here was running this action force table, and so I finally found it, and I went up there, and now Space Commander had already given me some action force figures. He sent me a little care package of them, but I wanted to increase my ranks, and so there was a box of Lucy's there. And I started digging through there, and I had about 5 or 6 in my hand. I was excited about, and I looked at Steven, who wasn't my best friend yet, but soon would become one. And I said, "How much for these guys?" And he says, "Those are for kids. Those are free for children. Why are you digging in the kids' bin?" I felt like the biggest villain in all of Joe Fest, stealing toys from kids. So I sheepishly put them back, and then went to the bagged figures and started buying real toys. But quickly after that, my man Steven and I became best friends, and I stopped at his table a few more times while I was there. These are the other guys that I know and love that love Action Force as much as you do. This is Zazel from Australia, and Space Commander from the Ionosphere, I think is where you are right now.
That's right.
I know space terms. So as I've been getting into Action Force, I said I want to talk to some guys that know about it. So I figured these would be the guys that would know. So Spacey and Steven, you guys grew up with Action Force as your go-to toys, correct?
Correct.
Right.
Yeah.
Zazel, in Australia, did you guys have G.I. Joe or did you have Action Force? I never actually asked you this before.
Yeah, someone who claimed that I was their best friend earlier, all of a sudden saying, "You know what, I never bothered to ask you any questions, find out about your history and childhood." Anyway, so I don't have any real memory of Action Force being here, but I've been told, I don't know, but I've been told that we had Action Force, but it was probably the G.I. Joe rebrand Action Force.
Right.
But
So that would have been like
I don't remember seeing them.
85. Did that happen? If I'm got my numbers correct.
But-
Yep, correct. Yep.
See, that's Steven. He's the guy. He knows.
He gets it. But I don't remember seeing them carded as Action Force, so I cannot deny nor confirm. I can only speculate.
So now my questions are going to be like this. What I want to know is I can go online and I can look up all the dates and details. And actually, before we get deep into this, I want to say hi to a couple friends here. Stephen Hall, the other great Stephen, he's back chatting with us. Good to see you, Stephen.
Great name. There's Ray.
Yeah, we got Ray here. He's here.
That's my buddy Ray. Yeah,
Oh,
he was
this
at
is your
Joe
buddy,
Fest
Ray.
as well. Yeah, so Ray was at Joe Fest, and I don't know if you guys know of Ray. He's an excellent customizer of action figures, particularly classified. So I'll probably
cool.
find his Instagram handle. He's good mates with oh God, Jesus, name. I've drawn a blank.
Jesus, best
God,
mates
Angie.
with
Oh,
Jesus.
Jesus Christ. Treaty Joe's Carson.
Oh,
Carson.
Carson.
Oh yes,
yeah.
yes, yes,
So
yes.
he sent over a couple of Falcon classified figures, customs for him as well. So Ray's great, and he recently
Oh, that's
did
awesome.
a custom of the SAS MMS from the classified. Is it HMS in classified? I think. And if you check out his Instagram, I think it's Action Force Ray GI Joe. Ray, put it in the comments, please, what your handle is, because there's some awesome customs there. But yeah, Ray was there. Ray's my buddy. There was there with the Irish contingent at Joe Fest. We also went over with a big UK contingent, and that's most of the stuff that on the table was from a colleague of mine, a colleague and friend called Stephen Brown, and we will be back next year. And speaking of your Panther, we will have you sorted for that Panther next year. Don't you worry, we have plenty of stock. Just let you know. Don't you worry, buddy.
Oh, that's cool.
Excited
My best,
about
I'll
it.
sort you.
Yeah. And then we also got all the way from Japan, Treasure for Triggers is here.
He's the real treasure.
He really is. Oh,
That's the
Am
guy.
I getting
That's
this?
it, Ray Murphy, GAF. Yeah,
Let me,
check him out.
Following now. I'm following now, Ray. Following.
One more. I got you one more follow, Ray. You can owe me that tenner later.
Just do it. Do it again in big screen. Zazel.
Oh,
Yeah, come on.
I'm doing the thing.
Make it better. There it is.
Make it better. He gets a new best friend, and he treats the rest of us like garbage.
He's got plenty of best friends now. He can have room in his life for many. Look at it there. I've
Look at
seen
that thing.
That is amazing. That's classified. That's not the original.
Wow.
Oh, that's classified. I wasn't supposed to show this.
No, that's fine.
Uh,
Sorry, it's late. It's 9:30 in Ireland, so it's a little bit late past my bedtime. But look,
you futuristic kids with your digital gadgets. I don't know.
when you're in
I'll
space,
draw a picture of it for you later.
You're in space. You're in the future.
He's broadcasting from a Commodore 64.
as these guys will tell you, if you check out the show Incoming Transmission on Zazel's Clubhouse, Zazel's channel, the space station is run by a number of things, mostly being a Commodore 64, some rodents in a treadmill, and underneath the workstation here, I've got a set of pedals, and I pedal to the space station going, and that is our high-tech futuristic technology up here, I'm afraid.
That's why you're always tired.
That's it, I'm always out of puff.
So like I was saying earlier, is I can go online, I can find the dates and
Oh no!
No, he can't. He's out of here, guys. He's out of here.
He's gone.
Yeah. He's decided to let the real Action Force fans do the show.
Adam, you zapped yourself.
back. I think the Baron Ironblood is trying to shut down the stream. Doesn't want people to know the joy of Action Force. He's trying to really just shut us down. But no, I can look up the dates and
distracted.
He's distracted and all the facts about it. But what I can't find on the internet is the life experience that it was growing up with Action Force, right? So like growing up with GI Joe, I remember like spending a significant amount of my childhood looking for a Snake Eyes in the store, like trying to find that figure, and looking and waiting to get a vamp, right? Like opening, I finally get to have the vamp for your birthday.
Yes.
And so those are the moments I wanna hear about. What was it like growing up with Action Force? Do you guys remember your first Action Force figure? And did you pick it? Did you get it gifted to you? And if you picked it, why did you pick it?
I don't remember the first figure, but my first memory was getting the red backpack off the deep sea diver and trying to work out with no packaging what the hell the peg was at the back of it and how did that work. And it's literally only as an adult when I saw the jump jetpack and got that for the first time that I worked out that I remembered that memory. But I can't remember the first 5 POA Action Force, but I definitely remember my first Hasbro Action Force figure in in the original Action Force era. That was a Cobra Trooper and Scrap Iron. I got them the same day, and Scrap Iron, just the amount of accessories that came with them, it was just awesome. And going from Star Wars figures and a handful of 5 POA figures to, I can't remember how many positions in a Hasbro figure, but it's just night and day difference. And that was a major moment in my toy life.
Yeah. What about you, Spacey?
I've got some various memories of that sort of time. I remember my older brother, he got into Action Force first. We had grown up, my younger brother and I, we had grown up with Fisher Price Adventure People. And of course, the big hit at the time was Star Wars, before it was ruined.
Ruined.
And we had these wonderful 5
Ewoks. They ruined it.
I don't mind the Ewoks. I don't mind the
Ewoks are okay.
Don't get me started on the Acolyte. Anyway.
This is a positive space now. Let's say positive.
Yeah, exactly. So when Action Force came along, the 5 POA figures, of course, that's how, when I think of action figures, that's what always comes to mind first, 5 POA, because that's what we had in the very beginning. So my older brother, being the tough guy on the street, he was he was sort of attracted, I guess, to like the military aspect, and these tough looking, I mean, the figures look tough. I mean, they're posed with their arms cocked for a rifle, and things like that. And he got the from the first wave, I think he got these, I don't know if it was on the same day or very close together, but he got from the first wave of figures the SAS commander, and he also, from the second wave, he got Muton, which was like the big, tough, scary looking bad guy. He got those first, and my younger brother and I.
Very scary looking.
That's the guy. So my younger brother and I, obviously, when we saw how cool these figures were, we wanted our own ones. I don't remember specifically which one was the first one I got, but I always wanted, of course, Space Commander. And he was so hard to find, I couldn't find him anywhere. And for quite a while, I had, amongst my several figures, I had one of the Z-Force infantrymen, and because they were kind of like an army, German stormtrooper, there he is. Yeah, the Z-Force infantryman, because he was like an army builder character, and you could sort of superimpose any personality onto him. I had one specific one. The paint deco on it was slightly different from the others, so that one's me. So for quite some time, I was one of the Z-Force infantry, but as luck would have it, just as the 5 POA figures were being phased out, and they were bringing in all the new Hasbro figures, I guess Palitoy were sort of chucking out, as it were, all their excess stock. So you ended up with like characters without any accessories, or they'd be on the wrong card back, or they'd be on the correct card back but with the previous name. So like the way Red Jackal became Destro, you might end up with one with the wrong name on the card back. But just as a sheer fluke, just as the 5 POA figures were winding down, I managed to pick up this little guy here. And
wow.
At first, my brothers and I, we didn't know what this logo was. It's not the Space Force logo that we all know and love. Also, he didn't have any accessories in the packet, but I didn't care, because I had a premonition that in the future there'd be a thing called eBay, and you could pick up the accessories as you went. So I eventually got the accessories for him. But even without the accessories, I didn't care. I was just so pleased to finally have a Space Commander figure. But we always thought that maybe this was like a factory error, and that they were just in one of the batches of figures they were chucking out, they threw him in with them, because it looks like the SAS Force logo, but it's red instead of yellow. And at the time, we couldn't quite make out what the lettering was. It doesn't say SAS. It turns out years later, when the internet was invented, and we discovered bloodforthebaron.com, Jim Marshall's wonderful website. WATT stands for Weltraum Anti-Terror Team, which is the German version of Space Force, and he was released as part of the German Action Force. So how on earth he ended up in a toy shop in East Anglia, I don't know, but I'm very glad he did.
That's amazing.
And
So,
of course, you'd be the guy to pick it up.
yeah.
Yeah, you know it.
So that was one of my questions for tonight. Is why do I see some space commanders have a red dagger on his chest? Is that like, I thought it was maybe the parallel mirror version of him, like a goateed Spock.
No, there'll be parallel versions of all of the original 5POA characters.
That's right.
And some of the Hasbro, because it started off with the 5POA characters, then we had some of the Hasbro molds with an Action Force twist, shall we say, and then after that came just normal G.I. Joe figures without any alteration whatsoever, but in an Action Force packet. So yeah, you will see in your collecting, in your searching, you'll see a lot of figures with WATT or TSATT or ATT and all the German variants.
It's not often that I confirm my stories that sound outlandish, but Wilhelm here says, "Hey, I bought an SAS Panther off the guy under Adam at Joe Fest. Cheers. Man, I love it. You're the man."
Was it in the elevator?
That
was
that was so cool because we at Joe Fest, like we arrived. There was the gang from UK and Ireland. We met. We spent the night in Charlotte, and then drove down. We arrived around lunchtime, and then I did an impromptu kind of sale. I was selling an APC to Pat Stewart from the Full Force podcast fame and other ventures. I literally had a suitcase open. Next thing I know, we're up in the hotel room, packing away, etc. And we had to close it down. And then, as Adam heard, he heard of that, and I was literally coming down from the 8th floor in the hotel to the 4th floor to my buddy Stefan's room. And I met Will in the elevator, and he heard my accent, and he obviously hadn't heard of these guys selling it. And I said, "What are you looking for?" "A Panther." "We've got about 12." And literally, I was at the first table as I was coming in as a vendor, and I was telling everybody, "Hey, I'm not like selling a Panther in the elevator." And the guy Don Johnson at the so I was buying some stuff off and doing a trade. "You've got Panthers?" And I had 6 in my bag, and I was taking them out, and then Will came up behind me, panicking almost, like, "Don't sell my Panther, don't sell my Panther." I says, "Okay, mate, we've got 6 more on the table, it's okay." But we ended up giving them one there. So, but I've kind of dined down that story a little bit as well. I sold one in the elevator, like,
yeah,
we sold out. Like, you wouldn't believe the amount of interest there was in Action Force at Joe Fest, and it didn't harm that we were selling them at good prices, in my opinion. Anyway,
no, and I'll say your prices were great. Like, I bought my Space Commander with his hat and his bluesy. And I think I paid $12 for him. Like, it was something that I couldn't argue with. Like, it was just like, just buy all the figures you can.
Ken from Toy Connections came over to the table and bought. So Stefan was selling most of the stuff. I just bought a suitcase over. Next year it'd be different though. I've got a lot of stock already. You probably see some of it behind you. But I know. Keep an eye out. Don't worry. But Ken from Toy Connections came over. I know I'm name dropping a little bit, but I recognise his face, and he went away from the table with a complete Steeler and a complete Action Force, Zed Force tank for $120. And again,
bargain.
I was even saying to Stefan, "Why are you selling that cheap?" Like, there he is. That's it.
The guy.
Like,
next time you see Ken from Toy Connections, he's got that YouTube money, man. You just charge him whatever you need to charge him.
That's it. We're just trying to make connections, like, to rip him off next year. Charge
right.
triple.
You hook him.
But
you get him.
We also sold a lot of stuff to Ryan from Toy Federation. We were in a recent video. And,
Joe.
Hey. So great experience. But sorry,
always be sure to throw in a tip for yourself, especially when it's Ken.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, but like you said, you brought what 12 Panthers down?
Oh
And
yeah,
they were gone by like show open on Friday.
they were. They
Like
were.
there was none for sale for regulation show hours.
And we had incomplete vehicles. They went like, you know, the loose box of figures. So Stefan was the one who brought the box of figures for the kids, and he brought a load of stickers and the likes. They just flew out, like, you know, and we didn't
for
have
the
any.
kids and me.
Well, you had your kid though, didn't you? With you as well. So
I was
yes.
like, my 16-year-old son would like a free action figure, please.
I think, did we give you one in the end? Probably did, but
we had friendship as well as toys by the end of it. But no, my son was a savage at Joe Fest, so he came down and he's always, we raised him as a toy kid, and he's become a collector, and so he would pick up like a classified. I remember specifically there was one booth there, and the guy had $18 on him, and my son says, "Would you take 10? Would you take 10 for him?" And the guy just kind of went like, and kept looking, waiting for my son to break. And my son just stared back, not breaking. And these two guys just stared at each other for what felt like an hour. Like it was just this battle of wills.
Yeah.
And then the guy's like, no, I can't. And my son was just like, okay. Just like put it down and walked away. And the guy was like, like it was a very funny experience.
But the problem at Joe Fest is it's just, it's
thanks, Will.
Trying to fit things into your suitcase going home. You know, it's just, there's so much there to buy, but man, the buying is only, I was gonna say half the battle, but that's a bit of, but the buying is like 20% of it, and people don't understand that when I came home. The experiences that we had, Adam, at the table, having what we Irish call the crack, you know, making friends, making buddies. Look at this now. It's, you know, and then in the bar, like, I hadn't been. I'm not a typical Irish person. I don't drink a lot, but boy, did I drink that weekend. You know, and I tell you, Puerto Ricans can drink. That's all I can say. A couple of bottles of rum passed around. But
what did the Irishmen learn at Joe Fest? Puerto Ricans can sure drink.
we bonded over commonalities, let's say that, other than toys. But you went to the pool, which they christened Club Tarkin, I think, in the end. The Toy Kind of Moon guys and stuff like that. But there was Action Force was very big at Joe Fest this year, because we had my buddies Brian and Paddy over there flogging their brilliant books, which I had a part in the second one, by the way. Some of my collections in there, the International Heroes one. And then also, there you go. Yeah, that's it. So half my collection is in there, Space Commander. But the things that I was missing, I now have in the collection. So I could.
So when are you coming up to the space station to sign this thing for me, huh?
Well, I'm not going to sign it, but I can get the boys to sign it for you. I became good friends with them through making that book. They were looking for people to photograph collections, and I was back collecting big time then. So they got the likes of my Night Raven, which is sitting down there, my MCC, things like that. My Sky Striker again is on the floor. I'm in the middle of renovations here, by the way, so I just did a loft conversion or an attic conversion, so I was able to stage a few bits today. But it's going to look a lot nicer in a few weeks.
Next time we should have just prices on them.
I didn't want to be that blatant about, you know, flogging my wares, but the Action Force stuff you see here, the Action Force palletized stuff, that came out of a suitcase that I've already got packed for Joe Fest next year.
Yeah,
and we have.
Oh, cool.
We have lots more. We have something that begins with or and ends in skull. Maybe 3 or 4. Maybe more.
4.
Maybe more.
Maybe only 3.
Oh, thanks, Will. I really appreciate that. Yeah, we've got that. We've got Triad Fighters. We've got more APCs. We're going to be well stocked. Plenty of books as well. I think we've got 40 annuals. That's a piece of art, that you have, Space Commander. Is that the real one that's just the scale in the background, is it? But so I was talking about Action Force. So the guys were there, and Paddy and Brian in particular was promoting his new collection of the comics, the Battle Action Force comics, which is a great source for finding out information about Action Force. And then also you had the Godfather, you had Bob Breakin. I didn't see his panel, but I was actually down. I was buying and selling at the time. But I'd already seen it at Roll Call last year, which is a UK show for Action Force and for Transformers, my other love. But he was there, and he was brought over by the Skeletron for the new Robo Skull, and he got all the care and attention that he deserved, and it was nice to see him. You know, he's in his later years, let's say. Nice to see him get that, you know, that red carpet treatment that he really deserved. And
I didn't go to his panel either. I was busy buying Action Force stuff, but I did have a moment with him at the buffet.
Excellent!
At the hotel buffet, and so I had to go and say, "Space Commander says hello." And he's like, "Space Commander," like, you know, the guy who dresses like Space Commander. He's like, "Oh yeah," he says hello.
Whoa. Dresses like.
Who is Space Commander?
Thank you.
Who wears his regalia all the time. That's what he does. But I did say to him that I often tell his story when it comes to like standing behind what you've done and kind of like, you know, putting yourself to the test, where he took the flocked head of Action Man and put it on the stick shift of his car and drove around with it to see if the flocking would stand up to kids playing. And
that's cool.
That's the coolest story to me, of him just being like, let's see if this works. Let's just be able to say without a doubt that this will hold up to kids playing. And so he drove around with that for 3-4 weeks, and he goes, yeah, it's still there, so it's gonna work.
I actually have a 1-to-1 scale model, it's life size, of Bob in his earlier years, and I can show that to you right now. There he is.
Sorry, I have to reach in to look at that. That's awesome.
Well, Bob's a lovely guy, and he is that big.
Yeah,
he is. He's not high in stature, but he's an absolute gentleman. I first met him at Roll Call last year. He was actually over in Ireland last year because he did his book with Brian Hickey, and I just missed out on the dinner. I think I was over in Sandown in England, a big toy show, helping sell stuff and buy stuff with my buddies in the UK. But he's just a really nice guy, and his son was there, and his son is not an action figure collector. He's a normie, as some of us call him, you know. But he was just, the son was just actually just amazed, and I actually see how proud he was of his dad, you know, getting this attention, and people just coming up to him like he was a rock star, and it was well deserved. So this year's Joe Fest, you know, really did have an Action Force kind of feel to it.
And I think it's interesting. So I'm not famously, but very openly, I only collect vintage. I don't have any room for modern in the collection. It's, real estate's too high, and it's a rabbit hole I don't want to go down. But in a show the size of Joe Fest, and with as many vendors as we had there, and with like Marauders there, and with, you know, Longbow, and all the new LaCroix toy, all the new old stuff going on there, and every like Skeletron was there, and
Delta 17,
all the vintage stuff you could ever want. The first 5 people I talked to when I got to Georgia was like, oh, there's guys that have Action Force here. And there seems to be that there's this value of like, maybe we never knew about it growing up, but this is somehow connected to the G.I. Joes that we love. Yeah. In a way that isn't like a fan-based trying to recreate that. This was something that happened in a parallel timeline, and then they two kind of intersected and became one. And so there's this connection to it, but it's like it's something a little bit different. So like my favorite G.I. Joe vehicle is the Vamp, and that's why I love the Panther so much, because it's the Vamp, but it's actually like a little bit cooler than the Vamp, and it's like more like if I grew up overseas, maybe it'd be more common to see it. But for me, it's like this is something that's this is a showpiece in our collection. So yeah, Action Force, it was really interesting to see. That was the buzz. That was the buzz last year, that there was ample Action Force to be had at the show.
And more next year. Even more. We've got 3 booths next year booked.
3 booths.
Yeah, another buddy of ours is coming over, so we'll be there. We've got a lot of stock already. I'm not gonna come over, Zazel. Come on, I'll do you a good deal.
Done. I'm there.
Together.
Oh, that'd be awesome. You know,
Zazel,
I'm hanging out with Adam in Canada.
And
And
then
then we're road tripping.
to Georgia.
We could be international heroes.
Hey,
Already
Oh,
are, because you already are.
he said the thing.
he said the thing.
So when you guys were there collecting Action Force, the 5 POA stuff, and then the pilots came out, which were the first Hasbro figures that were recolored to be different characters. Did it strike you as odd that the pilots of these vehicles were a different toy, like a different pattern of toy, or were you just embracing it because it was what it was?
To us, there was no difference. I don't think we even, as kids, I don't think we even realised that they were specifically the drivers of the vehicles or the pilots. I've told Zazel before, but my older brother, he had the Shadow Track, which was supposed to come with a Red Vulture figure, and Red Vulture, he's a cool character, but the figure was basically a red shadow, but with black painted gloves. But the one my brother got had red laser inside the box, so there was like a packing error there. But this guy should have come with the laser exterminator, but we got him in the Shadow Track. Recognize him as being the same mold as Cobra. So,
but we wouldn't have known who Cobra Commander was at that stage.
Not at that stage, definitely not.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was just another part of the toy line. I suppose I suppose you could maybe like if you say like Masters of the Universe, you've got your core figures are all based around the same basic body structure, right?
Right.
But then you've got like a couple of odds and ends like Ram Man. I love Ram Man, but you also got like Rock-On and Stone Dar, is it?
Yeah.
And those two twisty guys, and like Transformers as well. You've got the original ones. They transformed into realistic looking cars and other vehicles. Then they started to introduce like kind of more outlandish, not quite real looking vehicles like Springer, the car that he turned into. And then you've also got like the Twin Twist and Topspin.
Yeah, I love those guys.
Right, but they're just part of the range, aren't they? You don't think of them as being some weird offshoot.
Hey, Dave.
So to us, hey, I was watching your black hole video the other day. It was great. but yeah, I
love it when Space Commander's brain catches up with him.
Oh dear, you don't know how much alcohol I need to get on these live streams, But yeah, it was just another part of the range. We didn't really see it as anything different. Later on, when it started to become the case that instead of being repaints, instead of it being Scarlet but in Z-Force colors, when they started to just use G.I. Joe figures, whole cloth.
Mm-hmm.
At that point, we started to think, oh, it's a bit weird that they're all, because we call them the bendy figures. If you see me talking to Zazel on his channel, as kids and now as adults, we always referred to them as the bendy figures, and so we kind of realized, wait a minute, now they're all bendy figures. But it didn't really phase us or stop us or slow us down in our collecting at all. We just carried on.
Oh, hold on a second here. I have the black roll cage Panther. The yellow roll cage one has been a bit of a pipe dream. The real estate is taking my apartment for toy goods. There's a variant of the Panther?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Variants, isn't there?
Variants.
Yeah, there's stickers variants as well, I think. Maybe Space Commander probably knows more, but we had two variants of Joe Fest. We had the black bar and we had the yellow bar. And
Is one more expensive than the other?
Well, we were selling the black bar one a few dollars more. So wouldn't be any experts on those variants, but yeah, that's what we were selling, and people were lapping them up as we saw.
Nice.
Ooh. Spacey, there's a interesting comment in the chat from Ray, which might explain some of the.
In 1 second, Zazel. Dave is saying that the Action Force for me is the 5 POA figures. He only picked a couple of the Joe era ones. Muton is still his favorite Action Force guy.
See, that's an interesting thing, right? because
There we go.
I prefer, and I know this, I'm not in the right audience now. Maybe International Heroes is my favorite action force to me.
Really?
I grew up on Palatine, and I went through the heartbreak of the comic Battle Action Force comic being cancelled, not knowing only till recent years why it was cancelled, because Hasbro basically wanted to rebrand it International Heroes. But I like the Joes, I like the bendy ones. But don't get me wrong, I still love the Battle Action Force era and the Palatine era. That's what I started on. But probably in comparison to Zazel and Space Commander, I'd probably be a little bit different in this room.
Yeah, that's
Well, I'm big fan of G.I. Joe mostly because I had mostly G.I. Joe. I didn't have any Action Force until this guy sent some my way. Spaceman has been teaching me the history of Action Force and Action Force characters. Now, for all I know, he could be making it all up, but I choose to believe him as he is the Space Commander. But I feel like there's room for both, and I think one of the comments I get a lot, particularly when G.I. Joe changed their theme song to International Heroes for a little bit, I think like maybe one season, people are like, oh, it's not International Heroes, it's a real American hero. I was like, yeah, for you guys it's a real American hero, and I still sing a real American hero, and I'm a big fan of it. But as we're all on this stream today, international, I get a little kick out of hearing that G.I. Joe theme song with international heroes on it.
I still sing a real American hero as well,
Yeah.
And if I was to listen to the words again, I'd be going, oh no, I'm an international hero. But it's just it's just a toy line. And with a history and a backstory and everything about it, that was just awesome. There was something for everybody, both in the Action Force Palatine era. I think Space Commander mentioned the military aspect of it. You had, you had your futuristic science fiction part of it as well. Didn't have any ninjas. No ninjas. No. Or
serious lack of British ninjas.
British ninjas, yeah. But it just had, especially at the time, the early 80s, that was when just before the massive explosion, with the likes of Transformers, Mask, and then Action Force International Heroes, but the Palatine era that Phil, I think, maybe Mask. I went from Star Wars as a really young kid, like I was born in '78. Then to master the universe was my thing, but mainly because it was something for my parents to purchase, and Santa Claus, for me to differentiate from my older brother.
Right.
And then Action Force really became my thing. That became more my grown up toy, and I seeked through it through the transition. And went from 5POA to Bendy, loving it all, and I didn't even notice that, like you said, Space Commander. I didn't even notice the difference between these guys. Like a Bendy and a 5POA, they just interacted. But I mean, I got Quarrel as a loose figure. I didn't even have the cycle to go with it. But she was just awesome. And I still prefer her to Scarlet as well.
Yeah,
I do like the colors of Quarrel.
The first conversations that I had with you, Stephen, which out of context would make us both sound like serial killers. I said I'm looking for a left arm for Coral, and you're like, oh, I don't have left arm, but usually her crotch is broken. And I was like, no, her crotch is fine. I just need her left arm.
When we're in the bendy world, crotch breaks are quite an innuendo, all right. But yeah, geez, it's unusual to have looking for an arm. I'm sure we could find something in the meantime in a box somewhere, in a lot somewhere where there's a broken crotch one that could swap it in for you.
We'll find it, and that's to me. Oh, look, we got G-Force Racing is here. G-Force, how's it going?
Honkin' Legends, excellent.
I'm trying to slim down, G-Force.
I was at the gym this morning.
I want to slim down. I just refuse to. Before we go too far down the chat, could you read Space Commander that comment from Ray? Because I think that might explain some of his packaging differences.
Back in the day, we thought we were getting a Red Shadows hyena with the red jackal, but inside the box was a red cobra hyena with the hyena HSS driver. They were repacked at the time for cobra stock in the old box.
Oh yes, yeah.
Yeah. That was similar to my story about the Space Commander being the German variant. As they were sort of phasing out the sort of Palitoy originals and bringing in the Hasbro items, there was this crossover period where they still had a lot of the recolored stock that had been part of the Palitoy range, but they now had the new Hasbro figures. So yeah, sometimes you would get like a box with the black. This is why companies will like put on there like a actual toy may differ slightly from photograph or something like that. Right. They put a little disclaimer on the box. So you get a box with a black his tank on it. And when you open it up, it's actually a red hyena. But you're getting it with the Hasbro figure. So what you've got there is a cool like crossover. So those would be quite sought after these days, especially if you've got the original box. Mm-hmm. So you had these like weird little crossovers like that. But as kids, there was no distinction. It was all part of Action Force. As I said to Zazel before, we had this kind of strange time where the Battle Action Force comic just stopped without any there was no warning, and prior to it being Battle Action Force, it was just Battle, and then 1 week Battle Action Force came out, and the following week it was just Battle again. The whole Action Force aspect had gone, and we found that very strange. And then after a few months or a year, we saw this advert, and we saw characters we recognized, and it's like, wait a minute, that's Cobra Commander from Battle Action Force. He's in a boat in the swamp or something, and it was an advert for this new upcoming range of Action Force, and it was the Hasbro Action Force. Of course, we didn't know that there was any difference. We saw characters we recognized, there were names we recognized, and now there was going to be a new comic. We didn't know it wasn't going to be a continuation of Battle Action Force. As far as we were concerned, it was all the same story. It was like a continuation, and it just went on from there. Now, looking at it as an adult, if it's were now and you didn't grow up with it, then you might focus on certain aspects and say, oh well, this is this part, and I'm going to focus on this part, and this part is separate, and I don't want to, but as kids, it was all one, and so it's kind of strange when especially being on YouTube with you guys. I always say to Zazel, the first two W's of www stands for worldwide, and we've met a lot of friends overseas and a lot of American friends. We've met Sergeant Slaughter himself, and talked to he and Kelly online, and made a lot of American friends. But certainly when I first started looking into Action Force, when I first got online, there was a lot of resistance from like the American fans saying, how dare you do this? How dare you change it? And it's like, we didn't change anything.
This is 40 years ago.
Yeah. Hasbro did it. It wasn't little kids in 1980s, playground at school making these decisions. It was Hasbro, an American company. They were making the decisions. And, don't, if they change it to international heroes instead of real American hero, don't take it as an insult. Take it as this is a way of, extending the arms of friendship around the whole world.
Yeah, the family's getting bigger. Dave from Toy Polloi here is building a little narrative here. He was saying that his Action Force he had were mixing with the Star Wars toys, and he didn't know there were any backstory of them. He just kind of mixed them with his 5 POA guys. And then his friend had a Zartan, and he never made the connection that the figures that he had were the same toy line. And I think too, so I was born in 81. So by the time I was like toy cognizant, Star Wars was all but done. So all my Star Wars and that era figure, I always got at like yard sales, or you guys would say car boot sales, or a rummage sale. And so, but I remember buying like O-ring figures and 5 POA figures that I had no idea what they were part of. And then just a toy that because they were, a quarter or a nickel or whatever it was in the bin. And so you bring them home And I remember bringing home some Clash of the Titans 5 POA figures with no idea what they were. They were just cool toys, and I thought they were like Flash Gordon figures, like they were some prints from some space thing.
Yeah.
And then I saw Clash of the Titans come on TV, and I was like, those are the guys that I have. But it was this thing where you'd like just take and kind of create your own world, and I think that there's a severe lack in that creative play in kids today, that they have that imagination. A good friend of mine gave my son, when he was much younger, for Christmas, a collection of Micronauts, the old Micronauts
cool.
figures, and didn't tell him anything about them. And just said, "Here's some toys for you. Merry Christmas." And he and my daughter play with those for months, just making their own stories up, just making up their own back. And I'm like, that made me feel good that they could do that. And there's something about the Action Force and the G.I. Joe figures that lent themselves to that imaginative, like, here's the baseline story, but go make your own adventures and do your own thing. And so, as a kid, if I knew there was more figures in the military that could fit into this line that I was already playing with, that would have blown my mind. As far as the first waves, I guess the first 1982 wave, that was before they broke them into 5 teams, if I'm correct. Were those individual figures, or were those all army builders?
I suppose they would be army builders. Yeah, it was the original idea behind Action Force was that it would be Action Man in miniature.
Right.
So it's interesting what you were saying about mixing your Action Force toys with Star Wars, because Palitoy that made those early Action Force figures, they had the license to manufacture on Kenner's behalf Star Wars figures to sell in UK and Europe. So a lot of those Star Wars figures we had back then would have a Palitoy logo on them instead of Kenner on the card back. Especially the early waves of Action Force, they were very similar. And Brian Hill previously, he and Dave Gillis. Dave Gillis is, Brian is publishing it, but Dave Gillis is doing all the work. Let's face it. They're putting out a book. They're putting out a book. We've seen some early photographs from it, and it looks wonderful. It's called More News as It's Made, which is the tagline from the early Action Force adverts. And it's all photography of classic Action Force toys in various like war-torn situations, but also a lot of customs that Dave has done. And a lot of these customs use Star Wars parts because of they're pretty much interchangeable. So looking forward to that. Should be coming out in the next few months. So what I want to do is do a couple more videos, kind of restoring some of. I want to do like the Red Shadows, and then the SAS and the Space Force, and go on. But then the final video I want to do is I want to make a custom range of Canadian peacekeepers out of old Action Force. Yeah.
So do like a
Nice.
custom Canadian run, and have some fun with that, and just see, because I love, as I've been diving in and looking at Action Force, I love the just unapologetic kit bashing, repainting, and making new figures that was going on there. Like it's brilliant. And as kids, we did not care. It was just like Masters of the Universe. We did not care that they were all the same figure with different heads on them. We loved it. And so
we
that's,
still do. We say modern collectors do the same thing. Like it's just, we fell in love with all the characters, and we didn't care that Starscream, Thundercracker, and Skywarp were all the same mold, all just different colors. It's just same with G.I. Joe, same with Action Force. Like just give us the same stuff, different colors. But I mean, if you look at it, like, hold on, let me get an example. Like they're practically. They're different figures, like the paint is just completely changed, and then.
But don't put them back up in a solo here, so we can see a better look at those.
There you go. So let me put over the grey here, so you can see it better. Hold on.
Right.
Put it close to the camera.
There we go.
They're different
figures.
But that could be the same person, but just in. I love having different environments, like, you know, having your snow troopers, having your Arctic having your desert troopers, having you know, your jungle troops, all the same character, like, you know, and then like I've a spare MCC. On some stage, I'm going to paint that into green or to black or blue for Cobra, and it's one of the things that this hobby is great, is that we can do customs, but the originals were, you know, lent itself to that.
They were
Like,
customs.
yeah,
They
like
were-
most of Wave 2 and 3 were just repaints
Yeah.
of Wave 1, but a lot cooler. You know, like the Red Shadow, the body of that is just, look, that has to be one of the best action figures ever made.
So
Like,
the
you
Red
know,
Shadow was the German stormtrooper, correct?
maybe Space Man can tell me more about that. I think it's trying to remember who he is.
Yeah,
But it's obviously a different head. Yeah.
the body was straight up German stormtrooper there, and the face. Whoop, sorry.
Yeah.
They basically the helmet is the same, and they basically just smoothed off the face to give it kind of give it a blank sort of skull, and then it's just a matter of repainting it. It was so that the kit bashing that they did. I mean, we call it kit bashing now, but the combinations they came up with were really, you know, imaginative. And as kids, we didn't notice. Like
There's probably one of the best ones there, Space Commander. Look, so simple. Black Major.
Yep.
Like the Black Major's so cool. But look, it's literally a repaint with a skull and crossbones, and he's just such a cool figure.
I got into a fight with Black Major at the 40th anniversary thing in Coalville. So just got some pictures of that. but the box of figures I sent to Zazel, now, I don't want to come across as a nut job who just sends boxes of toys to people on the other side of the planet. It's for a project we're working on. But Zazel was impressed with Newton, as I recall, and I said, "That's this guy.
Yeah.
That's the diver." And they've found ways to customize the helmet and then put different accessories attached to it and give him that scary black and red paint job, and he becomes a whole different character.
Yeah, completely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it was interesting too that the first wave of Action Force in '82. Now this is probably because it was based on Action Man in miniature form, but they weren't like current soldiers. It wasn't like here's what the military looks like now. It was like these older kind of historic figures almost that we got for the most part.
Yeah, well, you have to. One thing to bear in mind. Sorry, cutting across it. One thing that was huge then was World War II was still massive, and we were so close to it at that stage. And we had in UK, Ireland, Europe, we had comic books like Victor, Warlord, Hotspur, Battle. They were all just doing World War II stories, and we had the little commando books as well. They were that size, and that's all we lapped it up, and it wasn't a very politically correct time. War was war was big, and was still romanticized as not as much as it would be today, for obvious reasons. Like, war is horrible, but we lapped up the military side of things, especially from Action Force. That's what kind of drew me in. Personally, was Z Force and SAS. Like, even as an Irishman, SAS, because I was an Irish boy, I had no clue about history. SAS was these guys in black, a cool logo, and they were awesome. So it's just a great line, and the way they intelligently reused figures, used the Hasbro molds for G.I. Joe as well. Like, most people would say that's the best color of the APC or the ATC.
The APC, the Z Force or the Z Force APC, Canadians when we say Z Force, is head and shoulders above the G.I. Joe version of it. Just for like once lift that top off, like what's inside and like the strength, all the it's a much more play set than it is a troop carrier.
I've been meaning to do it for a while, and I'll probably buy a couple of shells at Joe Fest next year I prefer the outside view. I'm probably on the rare because it's not, because this is new. This is not new to me. This is not rare. I prefer the aesthetics of the American APC, but I want to put the insides of an ATC into an American one. Again, for me, that'd be
That'd
best
be
of
cool.
both worlds,
I think you should do a third version and do a black SAS one.
Yeah.
Ooh. Ray Murphy, there's a job for you. he's my painter.
Put a couple of big ass rockets on it and make a Space Force version.
So I'll do I'll make up the black SAS version. Ray can do the classified scale one, so he can just make a bigger one.
Yes, nice.
Can you imagine a classified APC?
Now you're talking. That's a HasLab, though, unfortunately. But
I think it's a Ray Lab.
A Ray Lab.
So this is when the Action Force storylines started to appear in the Battle comic before it became Battle Action Force, they did like a few issues of the short story, and then you could get like a mini comic that came in some other stories. But this is the front cover of the very first Battle Action Force proper as the series going forward, and as you can see, it's all about the SAS.
Awesome.
That's cool.
Right there on the front cover.
Yeah.
How much was it? How much was that issue?
0 pence.
It's free.
Free issue. What did it come with then, though? It was free.
I'm not sure. My original one actually does have a price on it because I think the first issue came with a free figure.
Yes.
So I have this one here, which actually has the price on it of 20p. And it has a different blurb in there. But then I spotted this one as well. So I don't know what this came with or what you had to buy to get this. But certainly with this one, you'd get a free action figure.
Cool.
Which again, if 20p, I mean, crikey, you can't get anything for 20p these days.
I don't know how you have them in such good condition because that was newspaper print and just.
I love newspaper print. I know a lot of people are, oh no, that's the worst quality. I love it because to me that's a comic. When I think of action figures, I'm thinking of these guys, and when I'm thinking of comics, I'm thinking of those guys.
It's a different era, isn't it? It's just
very, very.
I think Adam, you're trying to find out what our experiences were. Like we would go down on a weekly basis to our local newsagent, hope they still had stock. Like most weeks I wouldn't have gotten Battle Action Force because it was so popular. And you weren't guaranteed it. There was no internet, there was no pre-booking, none of that. And then you might go into, and the newsagent might have a few figures as well, and you'd be begging your parents for that once in a blue moon to buy you a figure outside of your birthday and Christmas. But that was a paper print, it was like a newspaper. And when I look at the back of the old covers, geez, even now, it just brings back memories, it's just amazing. But then when it moved into International Heroes, speaking of free gifts, the free gift in International Heroes #1 was International Heroes #2 as well.
Perfect.
And it was brilliant. And it was introduced in the European team, etc. But we got free gifts all the time, most posters and stuff like that. But you would get a figure, you get ribbons, loads of other bits and pieces, and it'd be every 10 or 15 issues you'd get a free gift. You'd look forward to when's the next free gift going to arrive, and sometimes you'd have it 3 or 4 weeks in a row. And it was just an experience that we probably uniquely had in this part of the world, to be able to go down and get that and see what was coming next as well. But also Battle Action Force was different because we had a couple of short stories in the middle of the battle comic. You had all these World War II stories. You had, I think, Charlie's War was battle, was it?
Yeah,
which was epic stuff. But you really just went to the center to see where the Action Force story was. And I don't think every cover was when Battle Action Force was out. Correct me if I'm wrong here. Was Action Force, and you're kind of looking forward to the ones where it was an Action Force cover as well.
Yeah. Phil from Treasures for Triggers here, he brings up a great point. He says we had our hands on lots of stuff. Kids now have their hands on screens. But to go back to what you guys are talking about with the comic books and the newsprint, there was an unmeasurable value in it, holding an image of something that the kids will never know today because they can just look up any image they want.
Yeah.
But like to get a poster or a trading card or a comic book, a catalog, and just being able to look at that image without it fleeting away in a commercial, there was like a value to that you can't explain now. Even the back of a cereal box that had art for Star Wars or G.I. Joe or Star Trek or something, you're like, there's value in holding on to this. Where everything now is just, it's more expensive and it's more disposable.
How many hours would you have spent looking at a catalog prior to your birthday or prior to Christmas? And I tried to explain that my son is 11 and he likes his toys. He's a big Lego fan in particular, and he's been to shows and he's sold and he has an experience like your son of haggling with somebody, so have some commonality there. But they don't get the concept, like, that we would even with the toys we would have, we'd still be dreaming, looking at this image of a catalog or the back of a box in Action Force terms, or the back of a card with the cross sell, just dreaming of our next figure, and that's kind of an experience that they would never have, because they'll have YouTube videos about it, and people will get them stolen from the factory now, or whatever the case may be, and they and have people get sent free items. So but they'll come back in 20-30 years and say, this is our experience. My kids' experiences now is different,
Yeah. Well, so we are decluttering our house right now, and we're making up a new our mud room slash studio space here is getting a little bit of a reno, so we're throwing stuff out. And so we went in our old cell phone drawer. We had about 8 cell phones in there that were just obsolete now. And so there's like an iPhone 3 in there and an iPhone 4. And so my wife was like, we're just gonna throw these out. And I was like, well, maybe there'll be someone's nostalgia in 20 years, right? Like maybe that's gonna be someone's Snake Eyes in 20 years as an iPhone 4.
And that's the thing. And as toy collectors, we're kind of inherently hoarders as well. So we're kind of like, for example, I'm really the same. We had to clear the attic out to get this room that I'm currently in done. And all my son's Imaginext sets were sitting in my living room. And my daughters are 2 and 4. And they're now playing with that. And we're like, we can't throw that stuff out. But will it gain value in 20 years' time or not? Who knows? And you just can't live like that. You have to go, wait, what are you getting joy out of now? What can that bring to your life now? And there'll always be eBay, and or the equivalent in 20 years' time, and it'll always be something that people will chase, from their childhood. So I just go, whatever. Open the toys, play with them, devalue them straight away, and have fun.
Someone's going to open eventually. It might as well be you.
Exactly.
That's it. Yeah.
Zazel, I got a question for you. So hearing these guys talk about running down to the newsstand to get their Action Force comics. So we were born kind of in exactly the same year, just other ends of the world. When I would go down, and tell me this is your experience as well, go down to the comic book stand or the newspaper stand every Saturday with your allowance, whatever. There was so many options there that it was hard to stick to just one, like be dedicated to just G.I. Joe, especially when you see like there's a Universe comic, or there's like a Sectars or a Visionary. Like there's all these new comics coming out with new toy lines attached to it. And so I feel I was always tempted by like, oh, what's this new thing? And so I would often be like, well, I'll try something new this week. And so I would get my buddies and I would like trade comics around to make sure you fill the gaps of the story. And
oh, that's a great idea. So I was pretty alone in collecting comic books in my area. So Mum famously for my hometown, would pick up every issue off the stands of Marvel comics. So she, I don't know whether they loved her or hated her, but they probably loved her. But she would come in and say, right, he's got part 1 of 6. You're going to make sure you've got the rest of them coming out, because he's going to get invested in this story, and I want to make sure he can get the rest of these. She would ask them, just general retail humbug stuff like, what have you got out the back? What's coming out next? How many have we got here? Can we get a bulk deal? So I had a lot of comics, but not a lot of people to share those stories with. And it wasn't until later in life where I started talking to people about comic books and stuff. But it was a very solo thing for me. But my brothers and I would collect action figures together. And so if we were going down the store, it would be like, okay, we can pretty much get out of the three of us, we can pretty much get the whole Ghostbusters, right? And then Mum would go, all right, we'll get the fourth one. You've got to have all four. And then Voltron, right? It's like, oh, we can pretty much form Voltron. She's like, we've got to have all the lines. We might as well buy the whole set. So we were very lucky that way. But being spoiled for choice often meant that you would sacrifice one thing for something else. That didn't mean necessarily that you missed out. It just means that you had an eclectic collection. And maybe I think the hardest thing to do was stand in front of the pegs and hold two different things and two different toy lines and go, which one am I doing today? Am I playing He-Man today, or am I playing G.I. Joe? I've got to bail soon and head to work. But I'll say this finally is I learned about Action Force backwards. So from G.I. Joe, I had the triple T that said Sergeant Slammer on it. And I was like, okay, this is interesting. And learned about the G.I. Joe aspect of Action Force. But thank you to Space Commander for taking me down that long rabbit hole into Palatoy, because there is a lot more rich history here that I was unaware of and may have just only have seen it from the G.I. Joe repaint perspective. So, I love the idea of Palatoy and the history. You guys had a tremendous childhood if you guys were having action figures as cool as the original Palatoy Action Force. But Adam, I've got to run.
Yeah,
Stephen, it's great to meet you, buddy.
You too, buddy.
Hitting the hour mark here, so I don't want to keep you fellas. I know it's late where you guys are, but if you were gonna say, we're in a store right now and we saw the entire Palatoy line, what would be the one figure you take off the peg to go home with?
This guy.
Space Commander.
So in this hypothetical situation,
Yes.
do we have the figures that we already own,
No,
or do we not have anything?
We're picking out our first Action Force figure ever.
It
Taking
would-
one home. We're all gonna go play in the backyard later.
if
What's the one you pick?
if we could find him, because he was so difficult to find, it would definitely be Space Commander.
Space Commander with the German red cross on him.
Even with the German Red Cross on him, why not? Why not?
So is the question 5 POA or is it bendy?
You can pick whatever one you want, my friend.
Oh, now you're making it difficult.
Look-
So for the sake of this I'll pick one from 5 POA. I'll go
Perfect.
for a Red Shadow.
Red Shadow.
They do look cool.
Just a
Well-
cool looking figure.
Remember,
Because-
if there's the 80s, we're all
Yeah.
infants still. So the bendies and the 5 POA, they're all the same from that
True.
perspective.
True.
So you go ahead and pick a bendy if you want, mate. It's cool.
I don't think, but do you know something? I have a few figures here laid out here, and from the bendies, Red Laser is sticking out,
Nice.
right? Because he's just an awesome looking figure. Yeah, and the Red Shadow or the red, I don't know what variant this is. You mentioned Black Gloves earlier on, so these two guys are just so cool. They just stick out to me as an adult more so than a kid. As a kid, I probably would have gone for one of the SAS figures. I probably did back in the day because I had quite a few of them. They were awesome, but then there's one other actually bendy figure that was cool, Stalker.
Stalker.
True.
So now, Adam, if you were a Stalker, sorry, I don't know how much you know, but
So
Stalker.
only because I love the Panther so much.
That's right, great. We're on the same page. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's Snake Eyes with a bit of
Little
grey.
Snake Eyes there.
Um,
So I would go, just because I love Flint so much. I would go with the Royal Marine with the shovel and the rifle.
Cool.
I think that's a great basic army figure. I think he looks great. So guys, thank you for hanging out and talking Action Force with me. Let's do this again in the future. And
Definitely.
until then, you guys are all brilliant, and we'll say full force.
Full force.
Full force.